Welcome to our session on smart glasses and the future of smart glasses. My name is Tim Bajarin. I am Chairman of Creative Strategies, one of the high-tech research firms in Silicon Valley. I also write for Forbes and Fast Company. This is a subject, it's close to my heart. I've been doing research on smart glasses for about 10 years. And I've looked deeply into everything from the technology all the way through to the applications and worked with various customers on trying to help them understand where technology is going to be able to create smart glasses and the smart glass market. I put together a panel that I think is really exceptional, that is going to help us deal with this particular topic, which is smart glasses today and where they are going. So, to my left is Kelly from Meta, Jason from IBM, actually IBM, Lenovo, it used to be IBM, and Ralph from XREAL. So, Kelly, I'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do at Meta.
Thanks, Tim. So I'm Kelly Ingham. I lead partnerships across our wearable devices. One of the biggest partnerships that my team leads is our partnership with EssilorLuxottica. And that has been going strong now for over 4 years. We had our first product, which was the Ray-Ban Stories. We now have the Ray-Ban Metas, which I think you all are aware of. And I'm really excited. We continue to lean into that partnership. We've signed a long-term partnership with them where we're going to get access to more brands, more styles, and there's going to be a lot more to come in that space. My team also leads partnerships with other wearable devices that could connect with the glasses as well as research and technology.
Okay, and Jason, you were with Lenovo.
Yep. So Jason McGuigan, I am the global head of commercialization for our XR team. So my old title up there still, but we've dramatically changed what we're offering in market, dramatically changed what we're actually doing from a overall XR perspective. Obviously, we have a great new partnership and relationship with Meta on a lot of the projects that we're working on, but we really are changing the trajectory of what we're offering to market. In my role, I really focus on how we help customers and individuals create ROI. So that could be your personal ROI, what you get out of utilizing these devices, or an organization's return from either an education or a financial perspective. So really focusing on those use cases and making sure we help the industry grow, because obviously without getting return on these investments, the industry cannot accelerate. So really focus on that agenda.
Okay. And Ralph, you are with XREAL, and you were here on the first day with part of the opening presentations. Tell us, first of all, what you do at XREAL, and then a little bit about what your company's doing specifically.
Yeah, thanks for the invitation, Tim. Really appreciate your hosting. So, hey, everybody, my name is Ralph Jodice. I'm the general manager for North America for XREAL. I also look after our partnerships and publicity. XREAL is really focused on the convergence of where wearable displays have come these past few years, what have brought the industry to where we are, and then we turn our attention and push forward on where spatial displays go next and how we can bring big, cinematic, rich visuals through something that looks and feels a bit like a pair of sunglasses.
Okay. So the panel's discussion is really about where we are today and where we're going. And I have a lot of different questions I want to deal with. But first one is, we actually have seen some pretty interesting growth in smart glasses by definition of things like the Meta Ray-Bans. You've sold over 2 million so far, if I understand that right? It's quite an accomplishment over that short period of time. Now, that particular smart glass is really one that has the camera, and then I want you to tell us a little bit about what you added in the way of software, because when I first started using my the Ray-Bans, Wayfarers, the camera was actually quite revolutionary. You know, I used to always be putting out my iPhone and taking pictures. Now I had it on my head, and and when I started doing that, I kept thinking, we're kind of moving into another new genre where technology itself is becoming more critical to who we are. And in that technology term, I was thinking, maybe we're we've had, PCs, we've had smartphones, and now maybe we're going to get face computers. So start with, the new software, because what was really intriguing me about using the Wayfarers is now you've added AI, you've added other things. And what are you going to add to it this year? Because we have 2.5 or whatever million of these out here. How are you going to make them smart?
Yeah. Well, thanks, Tim. This is really a great topic because we feel like having smart glasses and AI is what's enabled this curve, right? And yes, 2 million were sold. I will just repeat, that was last year, right? I mean, this curve, we're actually on the hockey stick now. And when we see it, we're struggling to keep inventory and stocks up because this has now reached mainstream. I hope all of you saw the Super Bowl ad that we did this year with Chris, and Chris. That really resonated. A lot of people are like, wow, glasses are here and I can do functions on my glasses. And I think that really kind of created a bigger audience. And I think that with the advance of AI and people's comfort with using AI, if you look at the trends on ChatGPT and the number of users that they have, that confluence, I think, has really accelerated smart glasses. In terms of AI functions, we're leaning into functions that go beyond just what I call Wikipedia on your head. What I'm really excited about is we've launched our live AI feature. This is conversational AI. You can access it on my glasses now. You can have a conversation. You kick it. I turn my glasses off because it'll talk to me. But I can kick it off and say, "Hey, Meta," and then I can converse with my glasses in a tone and a conversation. I don't have to keep saying, "Hey, Meta," right? Which makes it much more natural because you're not going to sit and say, "Hey, Tim," You want to be able to have that conversation. And so I found that to be really fun. I encourage everybody to try it because you'll find that an expert will pop up. I was out Mount Rushmore with my kids, and so I hope everybody remembers all 4 presidents. I did not, so I had to look at Mount Rushmore and ask Meta, who's the 4th president next to Washington? It's Jefferson, by the way. And then I learned all about Jefferson, and then to my 11-year-old, I could tell them all the stats about Jefferson and seemed like the smartest person in the room. And then Meta even made a joke because I was looking at something that looked like a TP, and I said TV, and it laughed at me. And I was like, wow, this is where AI is going, that I have this whole conversational dialogue. The other thing is live translation. If you haven't tried live translation, have someone speak to you in French, Italian, or Spanish, and it will translate in your ear. This is a game changer if you're traveling to another country and trying to have dialogues, with individuals where you don't speak the language, right? And this is all seamless. You'll find that we've actually improved the latency on these different applications as well. We have launched a developer access toolkit that will be coming out in Q4 so that developers can get on board and start expanding even more and more functions. And that we're going to be adding in more AI functions into this device as part of our overall software launches. When I came to the airport to fly out, I said, "Hey, Meta, where'd I park my car?" And it took a picture and asked me when it should remind me of where I parked my car. And I told it, "Tell me at midnight when I land tonight." So what we're really trying to lean into is actually creating functions for people that help them in their everyday lives. Because what we find is sometimes people actually don't know what to do with the AI. The AI is so powerful on the device, but they're like, what do I do with it? And what they end up doing is just asking it a bunch of questions all the time. And so we're trying to lean in and give specific use cases of how they can use the glasses and really ideally create the glasses to be more part of the center of their ecosystem, right? Because we want people to be heads up versus heads down. So those are some of the cool things happening on the software front.
And if I could jump in on that, it's just, Kelly and I were speaking about this a little while ago, but the natural way that the devices interact with you now is so powerful because you are no longer trying to figure out what to do with them. They're integrating into your daily lives. They're allowing you to take on these tasks, these things that you previously would have to pick up your phone or pull something out of your pocket, jump on a computer, or ask somebody else. You're able to self-service, and it's not a foreign concept. It's just the natural way you would speak to somebody. Secondarily, even the base tools on the device. Tim, you mentioned the cameras on there. That first-person camera view is such a immediate, take you back to that moment connection. You can pull out your phone, you can hold it there, but it's always that not really natural way of how you've seen it. But when you watch the video of what you've taken from the glasses, it feels like you're transported back to that moment because it's through your eyes. It's the exact same vantage point. So it's such power in being able to do that from just the natural way we go about our lives. So I think that's one of the most powerful aspects I've noticed using my Ray-Bans. Is just that it seamlessly integrates into the things that I'm already doing. And that's just that first step we're at right now. I relayed this in my talk the other day, but one of the things that I found most amusing to me is I've got a good buddy of mine that I've tried to get into every XR device over the years. I've been in this field for about a dozen years, and I've gotten him into everything from the DK1 all the way up until the most modern devices. And he recently bought a pair of the Ray-Ban glasses without, mentioning. He's like, "Hey, have you tried these?" And I was like, "Yeah, we're working with Meta. Of course, I've tried them." So we started talking about it. He's like, "What? I just wish, there would be the same sort of thing, but they'd have like a little display on it." I'm like, "You mean like an XR device, like we've been talking about forever?" And so it's starting to bleed into just the general populace of what's capable, and then it starts to ask the question for each individual, what if? Well, what if I could do that? And we know that every time we introduce somebody to an XR device, the first time they try it, they say, "Oh, well, you can probably train people on this." Yeah, you can. Oh, you can probably, give this to school kids. Oh, yes, you can. People having that what if moment with these devices now is also what's going to make them penetrate more into the general populace. So we're seeing where we're at right now being that logical next step, having those next like superpowers associated with it. It's just an amazing moment. I think this particular product has really opened a lot of people's eyes, and I can't overstate the value of going with a known commodity brand like Ray-Ban, because people are already wearing Ray-Bans, and secondarily, you can get prescriptions on them. So a lot of people are going to their eye doctor and saying, "Hey, I'm going to get new frames. My insurance is covering it. Might as well get something that has some intelligence on it." I remarked to Sonia as we walk up here, and I was like, these are my dumb glasses. I don't have my smart glasses with me. But the reality is that everybody here has a smartphone in their pocket. No one has a dumb phone anymore. That's the world we're going to live in within the next few short years, where everyone's devices are going to have some level of enablement on it, and we're just at the very beginning of it.
So before we go to Ralph, to elaborate a little bit on how they're employing AI and voice, in their stuff. Let me ask a question, because you brought something up kind of interesting. That the guy said...
Thanks, Tim. I'm glad it was kind of interesting.
Pardon me?
I'm glad it was kind of interesting.
Well, you said that the guy said that he'd like to have, like a display. But the Meta Ray-Bans at the moment have kind of defined at least what I would call an AI smart glass, where I don't have an extra lens. I'm not getting a lot of feedback, other than when I take pictures and I get beeps, etc. But is there a market just for AI smart glasses? I'll start with,
Clearly, yeah. Kelly could probably give you the real sales figures.
Yes, definitely. One of the things I highlighted this last time I talked is don't underestimate. Everyone here in this room is program, right? We have not hit mainstream yet, right? 2 million devices means we're still in early adopter phase. And so AI glasses in the form and function that we can enable, they're lightweight, they look and feel like Ray-Bans, and they provide a set of functionality with, you have access to AI, you have the cameras, and you have the audio. I think these are going to be the mainstream glasses. We have challenges with displays today, right? Displays are still heavy, right? We're still figuring out, how do you put a display in front of your eyes and have it be comfortable? Do you use monocular? Do you use binocular? You have to add more lenses, you add more weight, you add more cost. There's a lot more advances that need to be had in display glasses before they're going to be mainstream technology. And just remember, Ray-Ban Stories launched in 2020. It's 25, and we're saying, okay, we're just hitting early mainstream, right? So these adoption curves have to run. And so do I think people are going to use display glasses and that they're going to be the glasses of the future? Yeah, probably after 2030. That means we still have to keep developing and pushing them now, and AI glasses will be the glasses that gets everybody into this market, and then they're going to start expecting more, right? It's this is they're going to expect more of their glasses. And I would say that what I've seen that was really compelling is when you start adding features that give you confidence in your AI. So if I gave you the live translation case, and then it comes up and actually shows me what's being translated here in my glasses, I was like, hey, that's really cool, because sometimes I don't hear everything that somebody says, right? And so suddenly the display becomes an additional feature that's actually giving more confidence in how you're already interacting with the glasses, because you've already been trained with the AI glasses that you had as your first pair. In our world, we see people having multiple pairs of glasses, right? I have 2 pair. Obviously, I'm a power user, but I have these, which are my transition lenses that I go inside and outside, right? I have my other glasses that I use mostly outdoors, and I use them for running. And the reason for that is they get scratched up and they don't look so hot because I don't treat them as well as I treat these glasses. But we see people having multiple pairs of AI glasses that they use for different functions. Maybe it's RX, maybe it's sports, maybe it's for everyday lifestyle. And like creating that base is going to enable them to jump then into display glasses once we've solved some of the display challenges.
So Ralph, you're kind of in the other spectrum in the sense that you guys have always had a display in yours. Now, granted, your display is a little bit different in the sense that, at least in your original glasses, that display is allowing me to see the early glasses had field of view of 50 degrees. I think the new ones are about 70 or 68 or whatever. But it allowed me to have a big screen TV experience, etc. And you, in a sense, with XREAL and others in your category, have defined another type of a smart glass. What have you found from that experience? Because that's been out for now about 2 years, etc. Number one, what has been the dominant driver for that? Has it been gaming? Has it been entertainment? And then I know you're now adding some of the AI functionality as well. And we'll get up to the next version in a few minutes. But based on what you've already got, in which you do have a display, although it's a little bit different type of what Kelly and Jason were talking about, what has been the experience with a display, at least in the context of its bigger screen and entertainment and gaming?
Yeah, and the first thing I think of is the real challenge that the analysts have in defining all these different categories. So good luck with that, Tim, the analyst community. Smart glasses, wearable displays, spatial computing. We're going to head in the right direction, but we're sitting in a seat where XREAL iterates really fast and really often, firmly in the wearable display. And like you mentioned earlier, we've done wearable display glasses since about 19 and 20. And they were triangular bird baths, a big lens. And the goal was, here's your big screen. And that's great because it's plug and play and it's simple and folks can understand it and they can connect our glasses to your iPhone, your Android phone, your Steam Deck, your ROG Ally, your Nintendo Switch, your MSI Claw, your PCs, your Macs, your Xbox, your PlayStation. It just keeps going. We connect to your devices. Here's your big screen. And it's really complicated, but it's unsophisticated at the same time. But there remains extra tech in there. There remains extra screens. And we're committed to that because we're going to keep iterating that until that big fat triangle gets smaller and smaller until it disappears. So what we've gotten to today is taking our chunky triangular bird bath and we've been able to pinch it down to a flat prism. And that flat prism's 11 millimeters thin. It's 44% smaller than the previous triangle. It produces today an image that's 15% larger. Tomorrow that's an image that's 44% larger. So for us, video display glasses is where our focus lies. It's just another category. It's another pair of glasses that sit next to your AI smart glasses. So you have your all-day wearables, and then what we like to call all-day portables. Right? We know where we are. We're not an all-day wearable glass, but we're an all-day portable glass. We're small, we're lightweight, we're easy to be on your head, to be on your shirt hook for the one guy who has one, or to be in your bag. So when you want your video display glasses, when you want your spatial display glasses, they're there when you need them. But that's not an all-day wearable device. Those are. Right? So there's categories. So good luck defining all the categories to help us figure it out. But for us, we'll remain focused on the video display and taking that extra lens that's in there, getting it smaller, but producing something that's bigger. And today that field of view is up to 57 degrees field of view. A few years ago, it was in the 30s. That's not going to cut it for something cinematic. That can cut it for notifications. That's okay. Right? Notifications and lines of text, that's okay. There's a real need for that. But our focus is on cinematics, big visuals. I want you to be able to sit down with our glasses and get a screen that's 300 to 400 inches large, that's bigger than the fuselage of your airplane when you travel. That's what our focus is going to be on. And that's just different from a smaller field of view with smaller text or smaller visuals. And that's okay. Different categories for different use cases.
And I think that's kind of the in-between we're talking about here, is that there's a whole mass of products to come that strike that balance. we do not necessarily need the full center screen for every use case. And sometimes the most simplified aspects, helping you find your keys and putting a simple dot on the screen, a lot lower power consumption, much easier use case, but something as immediate utility can be built directly into the device. So there's so much of that to come, but I think that's a great way. I haven't heard mentioned before, the all-day portable creates a distinct gap between where the products lie, and I think that's a very good point. Though we still refer to all of them as smart glasses, so the challenge is of course getting the general audience and then the broader audience that's outside of this room to understand what we're actually talking about.
I just want to comment that you have a hook on your shirt there for your glasses.
Yeah, it's a one of one.
You're trying to start a trend.
There's a whole accessories market that's going to kick off here.
Trying and failing, yeah.
All right, so as a professional market researcher, I need to ask this question. You each do market research as well. What are your customers telling you they want? As you're in the planning cycle and you're in the development cycle, what are your customers saying? And we'll start with you. I love the Ray-Ban glasses, but I would like X or I'd like Y. And then Jason, you guys have done tremendous work in the enterprise sector. What are your enterprise customers saying? And then Ralph, will get to you in the same context. You've already shown a little bit about what you're going to do, and then you've got a new product coming up called Project Aura. We'll get to you as well. But again, as a market researcher, I look at what are your customers saying? What are they telling you they want?
So I think a lot of the feedback that we get on the Ray-Ban Meta, they want them to be lighter weight, right? If you're doing all day wear, these are still heavy glasses, right? They can pinch you in the back or pinch in the front. So you definitely need them to weigh down. Second one is louder. So the people say the audio isn't loud enough on these glasses. They want louder audio. By the way, we're going to fix that. The third thing that we hear a lot is, thinner design and more design styles. Our glasses today are predominantly worn by men, right? Because we have the Ray-Ban Wayfarer, and so we have our Skylar series, which is more of a feminine style. But people want choice. If you look around the room right now, no one has the same pair of glasses on except Tim and I. And so you want to have more styles, you want to have more choice so that people can find glasses that fit them. And so that's something that we're also going to be leaning into a lot. People ask for display. When are we going to get this kind of form factor with a display? I think on the Meta AI side, people are looking at functions that are in the market with ChatGPT and saying, can I do that on my glasses? And so that's something that we're going to be kind of leaning into in terms of some of the feedback coming from the glasses themselves. But those, I think, are the biggest areas. For RX users, weight is a huge concern for them because if you start putting in lenses, the glasses get really heavy. They want frames that are clear, that you have just the glass. You don't have to have the bottom frame. We get a lot of feedback. I think also the economics of the glasses is something that we need to continue to improve on. The challenge is when you're competing in this analog glasses space, people are used to really great economics, right? These glasses are pretty expensive for what's actually in them from a BOM cost standpoint. And so retailers and the chains that we sell through where we meet people where they are, that they want to go buy glasses, those retailers want the same economics or more similar economics to analog glasses, right? Which is really challenging when you're selling a CE product. And so I think that's another area that we get a lot of feedback on how we can make improvements.
Again, as I mentioned, Jason, you have had a lot of experience, especially with the enterprise. What are your enterprise customers saying they want?
Yeah, so I think the area that we look at is, with enterprise, they don't want quite the same level of openness a consumer might want. The refinement is what really enterprise customers ask for, having the ability to train data and information specifically for their business, to be able to say, this is the AI glass trained for my organization. You look at some of the classical use cases we've talked about in the industry forever around things like remote expert. We're eliminating the need for that remote part. If you could train a AI expert specifically on your business's needs and then have your team be able to reference that on the fly specifically around just those topics, That's an area they're looking for. It's that refinement of the data set. It's the training and the personalization of that data set. And ideally, it's a security-backed version of it, so that way it's only localized and only accessible by the organization. So you can feel free to give it all of your corporate information, all your trade secrets, all the things that you would need to train your employees on that you don't necessarily want referenced elsewhere. The hardware aspects, I think we're seeing continue to evolve, but I think just being able to create those more refined use cases around it is a key area that we're seeing, like, absolutely being asked about it every single day. As we look at that refinement, it also helps the end user understand, specifically to Kelly's point, what that pair of devices is being used for. I put on these devices and they're for work. I put on these devices and they are for fitness. I put on these devices, these glasses, and they're for my general everyday use. But when someone puts on their pair of glasses and it's open, it's a bit like giving somebody a piece of paper and saying, draw me a picture. First 10 minutes, they're going to figure out what they actually want to draw and then restart 5 times. But if you say, draw me a picture of a horse, then they're going to go to work right away. So creating that specific agenda for those devices, creating a refinement around it, and making it contextual based on their business is absolutely an area enterprises are asking for. But it does require things like an SDK and a platform to be able to create contextual information that is refined and trained specifically for their audience.
So let me follow up with you on that one particular, because that means you as a corporation who are actually dealing with enterprise accounts that have different needs, I would assume you have to have different types of glasses/headsets.
Well, it does depend on the use case. So, things that like intrinsically safe devices, things that require certain levels of, like we found out through many years and a lot of experimentation, there's certain audiences where a tether to a device is an absolute non-starter because of snagging, because of the way it fits with certain people, or the inability to find a pocket if you're wearing a bunny suit in the lab or something. All those aspects that could potentially cause, struggles, has created these individual, areas where organizations are saying, here's our list of criteria. What the beautiful thing about AI smart glasses is, though, is that there's general overall acceptance of, well, we already use our other devices to gather information. But if I can do it hands-free, if I can do it automatic, and I have the camera recognize what I'm doing and give me contextual information based on that, that has almost universal appeal. But, from an organization perspective, universal appeal doesn't mean you want to share your information with the universe, right? You want to be able to refine it, keep it locked down, and keep it private. So I think it's less on the hardware restriction. And I use the example of a bunny suit for a reason, because no one looks great in a bunny suit with the the hairnet and everything on when you go into a clean space, right? They're not worried about the style of them. They're not worried about, do these look good on my face? They're a tool for work at that point. So you remove some of that aspect, it turns into a much more open device where people are just accepting that everyone's wearing that device on their face because everyone's getting the assistance. And people with that assistance move at a greater speed. Kelly's story earlier about Mount Rushmore, gave her the opportunity to look, like she knew everything about Mount Rushmore to her 11-year-old. That's the way people will be able to move throughout their corporate space, knowing everything that they need to know about their business and moving at a faster speed of business and again, driving a higher return on investment. If you don't have to stop, go offline, get an expert, look up the information, and it's there contextually giving it to you on your face while you're doing it, your speed and your efficiency goes through the roof. So that's absolutely an area we're seeing, but it does require a little bit more of that locking down for individual groups.
Now, Ralph, you have a different kind of audience that you had doing research for, but have they been pushing you to expand? So let's start with the initial question. What do they want based on what your original product is, and what are they saying they want you to do going forward?
Replace all my screens. This is our simple value proposition. Your screens typically are right in front of you and fixed to a wall, or maybe you're holding it down here, or you're flicking around down here, or you're typing right here. And they're always the same size and they're always the same place. They're telling us, replace my screens. Whether that's in an enterprise setting or a consumer setting. Mostly consumer, a couple enterprise use cases. So our ability to replace your screen is our ability to put your screen everywhere. Anything can be your screen from any device. I did the list of the gaming handhelds earlier. but our ability to replace that screen or to augment that screen or give you more real estate for that screen. When I can connect to my phone or to my laptop, and that's my mobile workstation, and I can take a 32:9 highway canvas of a screen anywhere I go, I'm not just replacing the screen, I'm making this screen on my laptop useless all of a sudden. So that's what our customers are asking us to do today and for the past few years. Replace my screen or augment my screen. Make it bigger, make it wider, give me the ability to own space. Because our screens are not spatially aware. Our phones aren't smart enough, our PCs aren't smart enough. They don't know how to manipulate 3D space. So they're asking us to do that on glass instead of on the host device, like we tether in. But that host device doesn't know how to be spatially aware. So they're asking us to give them options. I can push buttons up here on my glasses, and I can make your screen bigger, smaller, farther, closer. I can anchor a screen to the ceiling. I could have my speaker notes anchored in the back of the room there, so they're only there when I look at them. Replace my screen. That's what we're doing today to meet our customers' needs. What they're wanting next, make that field of view larger. Right? That's number one for us. Field of view larger, field of view larger. And we've grown that, like I mentioned earlier, from the 20s to the 30s, through the 40s, we're in the 50s, and we know how to get into the 70s, which is what we'll do with our next big project. So it's make my, thank you. Thanks, those are plans. So it's make my field of view larger, make my glasses smaller. And as we put more tech into our glasses, that is a challenge. So how do we make things bigger but smaller? So we will continue to have that tech built in there. So they're asking us to make them lighter, make them smaller, keep them thinner, while we are still putting that technology in there. And that's a challenge that we'll meet as we keep iterating. Like I said, we will keep iterating super fast with what we have now and with what we have to come.
And if I can give a big boost to what Ralph is saying on the enterprise side, one of the biggest things we hear from enterprise with that is around the security and privacy aspect of it. Being able to plug this device in and being able to have privatize all that information. Think of healthcare, think of finance, areas where you may not want other people looking over your shoulder. At Lenovo, and I'm sure at everyone else's company here, you have a no open desktop policy where you're not supposed to leave your laptop screen up and open because people can walk by and see what you're working on. You use these devices and, you use the XREAL, glasses, and you are seeing that view of everything private. So you start extrapolating that out into how you can make sure that you're not sharing that information, and even in simple settings like a doctor's office where you may not want another customer coming up or another patient coming up and seeing the last patient's information. You think of the coffee shop to the doctor's office to the finance world. All those are places that we hear absolutely from an enterprise side. Privacy on these devices is key, and that's one of the major reasons why there's been a desire from the market for it.
Absolutely. And when we hear stories about doctor's office, dentist office as examples, when the doctor wants to show you something, but maybe you're not in a position to go look at their screen that's only against the wall over there, we have a built-in solution that's really easy. Put these on.
Right. So I want to switch gears a little bit to something I said earlier. Today we have PCs, we've got smartphones, and it appears that we're moving towards, and again, it's a dumb term, face computing. But in reality, it does appear that the next vehicle for information delivery and communications, etc., is going to be probably in some form of glasses or etc. Now, when we had the PC, we had basically an OS war. We had Windows, we had Apple, Mac. When we went to the smartphones, we had Android and iOS. So recently, Google introduced Android XR. Okay? Meta has Horizon. And who knows what Apple's going to do, but you can bet they're going to jump in here with another platform. So I'm a software developer out there. Am I going to be having to, one, deal with the fact that I'm going to be dealing with these three different platforms? And then how do I develop for three different platforms? Or in that context, who do I bet on, right? And so let me start with, first of all, the Android XR, because, Ralph, you guys were in part of the discussion where you have made a commitment to Android XR. So why did you do that?
Yeah, we have. So we have announced back at Google I/O a few weeks ago and talked a little bit about it this week. our next project called Project Aura, which is our XR glasses for Android XR, first OST device for Android XR, and we're really excited about it. We're talking about a 70-degree field of view. We're talking about a small flat prism lens. We're talking about a high-end power chip in the device up here, but also a Snapdragon chip in the compute device maybe that's in your pocket, maybe it's on the table. We're really excited about that and what that opportunity means for developers, because it is Android XR. And the promise to developers is, if you're developing for Android today, you're coming into Android XR tomorrow if you want to. If you're developing for the first device on Android XR today, Samsung's Project Muhan, and you should be, you can come into XREAL's Project Aura tomorrow, and you should be. So that open ecosystem of Android, which is the biggest mobile platform in the world, has got an opportunity for developers, whatever you make, to bring it into Android XR, and then have different categories of what that could look like. You have your option of different kinds of hardware, different kinds of headsets. It's an ecosystem of devices that we're very happy to be a part of. Right? That's a good option for developers. It's a great option for customers. So we're super supportive of what is being built between Google and Qualcomm and then us hardware partners. And then when you tie Gemini into that, that's just fantastic. So we come back to AI that we started the conversation with. All the pieces are there to make this really offer something for everyone.
Jason, let me ask you about the Android XR. I'm pretty sure you guys are involved somehow with that, right?
We have our fingers in everything, right? So, obviously we work with Google. We work with Meta. We have a great relationship, obviously, with both organizations. But being a PC first company, and we make tons of Chromebooks, we make tons of devices, so we speak to them on every angle with this. What I believe is really powerful with this is that we as an industry need coalescence around common platforms. I really look at a lot, and it's a broken record. I look at the monetization because I know that this industry cannot succeed unless people make money off of it, right? So we have to grow that. And part of that is keeping developers, the small developers that are bringing up this nascent industry, employed and able to continuously monetize the effort they're putting in. And if every time we create a new device, it's on a new platform, it fries people out, So I think that's the big power right now. We've got, Android on one side, we got Meta on the other, and, I see them coming from two very different worlds. I'm sitting right between, representatives from both categories, right? But the way I see it from the perspective of being in the industry this long is that, Android's been around for a long time. People know it, and they're used to sharing that because there's so many Android devices out there. But they're still growing their experience within the XR space. And that's part of the process right now that they're going through. And you've got Meta on the opposite side that does amazing technology in the XR space, but they've always done it first party, so they're not quite used to sharing in the same way. So we're going to bring up both organizations in that same fashion to have these two powerhouses being able to offer developers safe ecosystems that have a lot of support. An area that I do believe that the Android XR ecosystem really has as a benefit is similar to what Apple had when they came out with the AVP, was that it worked with a bunch of applications that were already out there in 2D mode. Not necessarily the most immersive and useful from a full XR device perspective, but it gave you a stability of, I know I can use this for this, but I also already have a whole bunch of library of apps I can use with it. So I think there's a nice graduation from it, and is already a common language to pull from. As we see this developing, we do need that continual coalescence in the industry of what people will continue to support. We do believe that the market's going to be large enough to have people focusing on different types of devices in different spaces. We look at ourselves as not necessarily the core technology company, but we actually help get those products to people's products that they actually use in their hand. So we work with Intel and NVIDIA on your laptop, but you don't open up your laptop and say, I'm so glad I have an Intel chip today. I'm using my reliable ThinkPad. So it's that end aspect, that end service, that end thing that we do that provides the technology to the end customer that, we know that we need these solutions coming from these big players in order for the whole industry to be successful.
Kelly, you have a fairly good software platform already, especially with the headset, the Quest. So let's start about that. When you talk about, and I think I don't know when you're next to big event is, but it's also for software guys. So you guys are, courting the software industry to support Quest. Are you evolving that platform in a sense to also do eventually support glasses that you're going to bring out beyond what you're doing here? Now, I don't want you, obviously you've got other announcements being made that I can't get out of you. But I really am interested in Meta's view of the software ecosystem.
And I think this is a great question. So we have our Horizon OS, right, which is working today on, our VR and kind of mixed reality devices group, right? We have a robust developer ecosystem that's developing for those devices. What we really focus on is we have to have enough devices in the market. The developers, if they get into this, they can make money. So how do we create the flywheel? So when we think about AI glasses and even AR glasses in the next generation, today, yes, we're definitely working on how do we extend our platforms and how do we make sure those platforms can, work across all the different spaces. Obviously, there's a big difference if you're designing for a mixed reality device versus if you're designing for an AR device. I mean, there's a lot of different implications between those two. But the main focus today is developing that flywheel and having enough scale of devices in the market so if developers get into this, they can make money and they will stay into it. And I think when we think about AI glasses today, we have launched a developer access toolkit that will be available in Q4, so developers can actually start developing on the AI glasses platform. But our investment today is get as many devices in the market as we can, right? When you get to 10 million devices and developers start getting into 10 million devices, they can actually develop an app and actually make money on it, right? And so that's really been our focus. And our view is that we are going to make it easier for developers by creating better systems. It may not be at first, because what you need to design for AR and AI glasses is drastically different than a game that you're going to do in Horizon OS. But that if we can get the scale there, the developers are going to want to come into this market because they can actually start making money on it. And that's been a big focus. And, I encourage everybody to tune in to Connect, which is in September. That's where we do all our announcements. We're going to have some kind of teasers that are going to happen kind of before Connect and kind of our latest products coming out. But we're actually be talking more with developers at Connect. There's a whole track now that are just to developers to answer really specific questions in terms of what can be ported over, what are our plans, and how we're doing that. But that's what I want to relate to this audience is how do we create scale? How do we quickly create enough scale so developers can come in and even more developers and actually start making money in this category?
Okay. This clock is driving me crazy. It keeps going down. So in the short time we have left, let me jump a little bit to another category, and that has really to do with the development of, and I guess we kind of talked about it in the earlier thing, but are we at the stage at the moment where the next big step in smart glasses is some form of an AR leap, right? Where
Yes.
okay,
It depends.
because
After AI.
right, because Kelly, you mentioned earlier on too the idea of having a lens, right, in here and seeing the translation, or the yeah.
Basically, if we think about the categories, and, I think you hit right on the point that there's going to be a broad set of categories across this space. There's going to be categories for small field of view, right? In terms of with people having maybe confidence in AI, looking at their videos after they've taken it, messaging, video calls, other types of applications. And then there's going to be categories for wider field of view that are going to be, entertainment type purposes, right? And what you need to do for 7 degrees field of view is a very different architecture than maybe a 30-degree field of view. And then depending whether you're adding interaction, we launched our Orion glasses, kind of our kit showing kind of the future. And we have a band that goes with that helps you interact with those glasses. We have eye tracking that helps you look at the different menus, right? You can actually put the different screens. And so when you really start getting into this full computer on your head, there's just a lot more that you have to put into those glasses versus if you have smaller field of view that might be, that bridges that gap from, I think you said all day portability to like, how do you get to displays that are all day wear or closer to all day wear versus all day portability? And so I think that's what we're kind of thinking about in terms of the different categories and the different display technology that will be required for those.
And Ralph, you jumped in, so I'll come to you.
Well, it's the things that we've lived by for a long time. AR has been in our DNA since we've been putting video display glasses out. The ability to put whatever you need anywhere in the world at all sorts of different shapes and sizes. And our big focus here in 2025 was adding that spatial processing in the glasses so we can actually now manipulate your images in 3D space. Because we've been able to do a big ass screen for a little while, pardon me. And we've gotten really good at that. But to be able to make that big screen bigger, smaller, farther, closer, and to have manipulation of 3D space took a lot of work. So that was our focus, to be able to augment our big screen in space, and then to make it small when you need it. Only put holograms and pixels where you need them, as long as your field of view is big enough to cover that. So we're all in on AR, and we can call it XR if you want to. I don't. But for us, it's the experience of what you can do with that hardware. If you need to go big, we've got the big screen for you to go big. If you need small things in that screen, we want to be able to give that opportunity as well.
Yeah, I think the thing we've all talked about at some point throughout this conversation is that there is going to be devices for each individual use case or individual purpose for each person. But we also talked a lot about scale. Scale and monetization of this is really important, because if you don't have the developer support, then you can't drive scale of the actual hardware, and if you can't drive the scale of the hardware, you can't drive costs down, and you can't make this so you can have a device for fully immersive content, a device that is half immersive but still gives you a AR view of the world with displays, and then you have the smaller light display glasses, and then all the way down to your AI glasses. That full spectrum will have individual uses for folks, but this is the point now where we still have a bunch of power users in here that are still adopting the technology. How do we get it to the individual person that doesn't use technology? And that's going to take a little bit of time and comfort with AI. We have to remember that ChatGPT's big moment was less than 3 years ago or so. So we're still getting to grips about how that affects us, and now we're putting it on our face. That face computer aspect, though, is part of human convenience that we're so used to driving. We started with PCs and desktops, we went to tablets, we went down to smartphones, and we're bringing this technology closer and closer to our physical beings because it's more convenient for us to interact that way. And we, as humans, appreciate convenience. It makes us faster, better, easier to access this information. So I do believe that does create a way for us to interact with the world, but it also creates eventually the users and the not, and creates a bit of a divide between people that are constantly being fed information and people that may not be using that augmented technology. But we're absolutely at that point where scale is a key driver of it, because we have to be able to support this for everyone to be able to use these devices on a daily basis when they have that particular need. There's not going to be a one-size-fits-all device for every need for a good bit of time. We're seeing with like the OST devices now that are coming out, where you can go from fully opaque to fully transparent pixels on a device, but still scale, battery power, heat, all those things that we haven't solved yet are continuous problems. But again, who knows with AI, we're solving ridiculously challenging problems every day with it already. We do have a bit of this idea that we had a clear trajectory yesterday because we knew the treadmill, the direction we're going. And AI has thrown in this whole massive what if it solves something that was previously seemed unsolvable. So we're a bit in a brave new world where we think that we had a timeline. But if you look at the AI advancements we've seen just over the past few years, it shows us that our timelines were sometimes wildly conservative, and we've leapfrogged way past where we thought we'd be just 2-3 years ago.
Well,
I was going to compliment you on this dais and also the order of the dais. Jason sitting here in the middle is perfect. Very, very good order of seats.
so we, in the short amount of time, that stupid clock tells me we have, what's going to happen in the next 2 years? What do you anticipate? Without obviously telling us what you're going to do.
Do it. Tell us.
Yeah, I would like you to do that. But what do you anticipate for the industry? Are we going to make big strides in the next 1 year, 2 years? Orion, for example, is, I think 27 is what they originally announced. I don't know if that's been accelerated. Ralph, you've got Aura coming up, the Android X one coming up in 2026. Well, and again, real quickly, in the next 2 years, what do you anticipate? How will this look like? How will a smart glasses market look like within 2 years?
So in 2 years, if we're at 2 million units a day, we're definitely going to be in double digits. We better be in double digits, right? We're going to have more entrants in the market, right? They've already announced themselves coming in, right? So there's going to be a lot more choice, not just in styles and colors, but also in which platform are you betting on? Are you going on this platform, a Meta, Google Glass? Are you going to have Apple glasses, right? They're going to all play into different ecosystems. It's going to mean that from a retailer standpoint, when you go into Best Buy or Target, you're not going to have one lonely shelf with Meta glasses and Meta Ray-Bans on it. You're going to have a whole, end stop. When you start looking at taking on a whole category in these retailers, it makes a big difference because the retailers lean in and start pushing these products in a very different way than they are now. And you have more consumers coming in to kind of buy these products. It's, it's kind of, if you go back to like Nest thermostats when they first started and they had to like beg their way in and create a new category. We've been doing that, but now everyone's going to kind of jump on and look at what that is. So I think you're going to see a lot of noise in the market. You're going to see consumers trying to make decisions on which ecosystem to play with and whether one pair of glasses plays with another set of ecosystem. And then they're going to just have a lot more choice, which I think overall is a good thing. I think it's a really good thing for the industry. It's a good thing for the developers. And then I think it starts setting glasses at the center of the ecosystem, which is one of the things that we're trying to do is make the glasses here so that you're actually leaning more on your glasses and maybe some of your other devices.
Okay. Jason?
Yeah, I think what we're going to see is a bit more of that continued coalescence around the industry, around platforms. But what I think really helps that is the idea that these devices don't become singular in nature where you put them on, but they're part of a constellation of devices that can communicate and do work well together. And as we're seeing that integration across platforms, what Android's doing, what Meta's doing, obviously what Apple's trying to do with it, when it accesses all those common tools, all those common traits, it just becomes more part of your technological language that you go and use throughout the day. None of us use a singular screen anymore. We bounce between all these different things. These devices, these glasses that we utilize will have to be part of that conversation between devices. I think that's what gives them, growth potential. I think is what makes it inevitable that they'll be used. And as we hit some of these inevitable next steps, reducing power consumption, adding smaller displays, it gets into that common everyday populace using the device to do simple things like Kelly brought up earlier, finding a car, park your car, where'd my car go? But when you can do that because your car has something like a tile tracker or an air tag or something associated with it, and you can find that by seeing the heads-up display and saying, "Oh, it's over there." You get to see through walls and across miles to find the things that are missing. It could be your friend, your dog, your car. Those sorts of things become, oh, everybody needs this. It's not something that a tech-savvy audience needs to use. It's the person at home that just says, I want to make sure I always can find my dog, or I'm tired of losing my keys, or tired of losing my wallet. Those sorts of simple things will penetrate the mass market and drive massively down the cost of these devices because there will not be just tens of millions, there will be hundreds of millions of devices as we get continuously more and more adopters in the market.
Jason just said the conversation across devices, and that's fantastic because I think that's exactly what we'll see is when our devices are communicating and talking to each other and not replacing each other, right? Like our glasses are not going to replace our phones for generations. It'll happen, but that's generations. So the conversation across devices is going to be the big prevalent topic over the next couple of years. So let's come back and do it again next year.
Well, thank you so much. It's been a great time for you guys. I really appreciate you guys taking the time with us. And thank you for joining us today. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.